Hello, everyone. Welcome to DevProdEng Showdown, as we call it, DPE Showdown, sponsored by Gradle Enterprise. Just for folks who are new to Showdown, right, we wanted to create a panel in a game show format, learn about developer productivity engineering and developer experience at a large scale. Today's event is just that, and it's quite unique because we have folks from some of the largest banks in the world. These banks have thousands and thousands of Java developers and developers in general, and they've been operating with some software stacks that are fairly old, as banks are been using software for very long time now, longer than some of the Silicon Valley giant software companies that have been around. So how do these folks in today's panel who care deeply about developer productivity, developer experience, and shipping software at scale deal with those challenges of lots of code, lots of developers, massive scale in a highly regulated industry? We're going to go through 8 topics. Each person gets 30 seconds on each topic, and you, the audience, will vote via polling mechanism on who you think you learned the most from, who you think you made the best point. And that's all we want to do today, is hopefully you'll learn some new things on each topic that you can use with your work and your projects as well. First up, we have Ankur from Goldman Sachs. She works on developer productivity and CI/CD at Goldman Sachs. She is also dialing in from Bangalore today, so thanks for staying up late night, Ankur, to join us. Eric at Morgan Stanley, he's on a boat in Ireland right now, but he usually works out of New York. Eric's responsible for JVM tooling, centralized JVM tooling team at Morgan Stanley. Levi from US Bank, he's joining us from Minneapolis. I met him a long time ago when he worked at Target, and now he's responsible for developer advocacy and engineering enablement firm-wide at US Bank. Last but not least, Robert Keith. I've been working with this gentleman for a while now. He runs developer experience at JP Morgan Chase, and he's dialing in from Glasgow. All right, so let's jump into the fun stuff. You're working on these massive software stacks. You deeply care about innovating and shipping software at scale. So what do you do when you're blocked by process? Ankur, you're up first. How do you deal with that?
So processes exist to mitigate some kind of risk. But when they start to block, that either means that you need a crisper definition for the process, or you need a better automation for it. So just as an example, 2 of our microservices are being released together. Their releases are coupled today because sometime in the past, one of them released a change which broke the other, caused an outage. And the process that was put together was that the 2 have to go hand in hand and keep blocking each other for their releases. While the process that should have been put in place is to have an automated API compatibility check in your CI pipelines. So that's what we're focusing on.
Thank you, Ankur. Eric, you're up next. What do you do when you're blocked by process?
I tend to start with a bunch of push-ups and then ask myself, what do I want? There's so many times when process is arbitrary and overreaching. So as technologists, we're trained to see the various pathways that provide new and innovative solutions. Being blocked by process is more a state of mind, really, than a state of the world. So there's always people that want us to succeed for whatever reason. It could be helpful to throw some of the onus back on those people and being hopeful and creative. So improving the process in the process, and we all do better that way.
Levi, you're up next. What do you do when you're blocked by process?
Yeah, so there's a few things. To be able to be successful in challenging or changing a process, you need to find someone that's accountable to that. Hopefully you can convince them that improvement is part of owning a process. You need to understand what the outcome that the process was created to achieve. Until you can get to that, they'll stick to the process. And then you need to create a culture where process improvement is just part of their backlog. You can use software usability score, NPS, etc., so they can see the negatives in their process.
I love the data tie-in. Rob, you're up next. What do you do when you're blocked by process?
So I think for me, it's empathy and understanding, and trying to get a good handle on what assumptions you're making about the process. Once you've kind of got that kind of down, you can then decide whether to challenge, whether you need to escalate, or whether you need to just eliminate the process altogether. Obviously, data and all those kinds of things go into it. But remember, processes are very much built around people, so don't ignore that aspect. Identify, those key stakeholders, collaborators, and go after those people. Be generous with your solutions. Give them ideas, and you'll find the process generally improves on its own.
Great answers, folks. And it was a great warm-up question, to get us kind of going in this panel today. Audience, your turn to vote on who you think made the best point. To kind of keep us entertained. All right, here come the results. It's a close one. I got to even look at who. I think Rob has got it. Yeah, it looks like Rob's got it. I have to squint in. I need a magnifying glass to see the winner there. All great answers. Rob, on the board with the first point. Let's we're gonna liven it up a bit. Let's go to the next topic. What are the best hacks to speed up the onboarding time of new developers, right? Especially at large software stacks, lots of process and virus scam security, this, that. How do you guys get around this? And first up here is Rob.
So for me, it's all about the automation side of things and the local feedback loop. If you can get it set up so that your build and deploy can be done with a single command from your local development machine, if that can include and be kind of stateful in some way and understand what's already there and provision what it doesn't have, you're going to accelerate things. But again, there's a big human aspect to that. Pairing, mobbing, if you're onboarding lots of developers at the same time or multiple developers at the same time, work on that feature together, mob it, and you'll find that the knowledge flows.
Levi, you're up next. You work in enablement, so this should be right up your alley. How do you all deal with this?
Yeah, so, some of the patterns that have emerged that have been powerful for us, because we do hackathons with people in the business, is using cloud IDEs so that there's less local setup. Some of the other things we're doing is automating access requests upon first use of a tool instead of requiring it before use. Find a knowledge base or knowledge approach where it becomes ubiquitous. People know they go to this tier 0 knowledge base. And then it has to become accessible by everyone. Everyone should contribute, intersource it, and automate it, as Robert said, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Cloud IDEs. We're hearing a lot about that recently, so that's a great one. Eric, you're up next.
I've spent a lot of time putting together training programs. Some worked, some didn't, but the ones that tend to work are the ones that integrate new joiners with the team as quickly as possible. I also like to maintain a list of our most active and friendly users and actually have new joiners set up 15-minute interviews with each of them. Nobody doesn't have 15 minutes. And then not only that, we also keep tech debt with tentacles, touch a lot of the code base and get those worked on quickly. We can't usually prioritize them, so marking those with an onboarding tag, that really helps onboard new trainees.
Nice one. And Ankuri, to wrap it up.
So what has worked out well for us is a combination of give new developers as their first problem something that's very simple, something that's doable. So their focus is not so much on solving the problem as it is on understanding the internal ecosystem. Plus one on the cloud IDs, that seems to work out well. But on the back of them executing this first task, also capture very actionable feedback from them and basically track the execution of that so that it becomes easier for the next engineer. That's what works so well.
All great answers from everybody. This is going to be a good one. Audience, I'll let you vote. All right, let's check out the results. Another close one on Curry. You got the point. Now, the next one is a super hot topic, right? The whole Log4j vulnerability of course, large financial services that are regulated must be, security freaking out about this thing. But how do you do it across tens and thousands of projects and plugins and whatever, right? This must be really hard to do. Levi, you're up first. How did you all deal with this, or what can you share?
This is the one I was least excited to answer, just because I don't think we did I feel like we've probably all struggled with it. I think we struggled more in vendor products than we have with our own products. Some of the things we did is we had teams that had resolved it, pair partner with other teams that were working through it to make sure we were sharing knowledge across the enterprise. And, having an automated pipeline in place, those are the teams that, deploying often, they were able to resolve it quicker than teams that deployed occasionally.
All right. Rob, how about you?
So I think it's a combination of local tooling. So you need to be able to obviously bring those vulnerabilities to the desktop, make it really quick and easy for devs to scan their projects. Obviously, automation at scale was a big thing. We actually have a pretty robust bill of materials, so we were able to mine that data to get a reasonable idea of where things were. But I think it's a combination of those two things to get where you need to be. We also had quite a lot of risk analysis as well for where, maybe we didn't have to worry about it because of compensating controls. The environment was locked down. So that helps you limit the blast radius.
Curry, you're up next.
So with Log4j, I think what all of us will attest to, the one thing that we all struggled with was immediately to ascertain the blast radius. How much are we exposed to this, right? So of course, stuff like automated dependency tracking and dependency management, that makes a huge difference. Just in terms of the amount of time it takes for you to ascertain what your exposure is. So a combination of automated dependency version tracking, upgrades, very robust CI/CD pipelines that help you deploy the upgraded software really soon. And of course, where possible, follow it up with scanning of your runtime to see if you still have vulnerable artifacts somewhere in the runtime.
Eric, to wrap it up.
The blast radius was huge. So the easiest way to fix this, in my opinion, is delete it. And firms like ours generally centralize on some central repository, something like a distributed file system or Artifactory. And I know a lot of companies didn't do this for whatever reason, but the simplest thing to do is just delete it and replace it with some safe version under the hood. In reality, it goes against the kind of read-only rules, but in some circumstances when it's much more difficult to have every application recompiled and re-released, just tricking them into good behavior is a quick win.
All great answers. This was a very entertaining and interesting one. Audience, who do you think made the best point? Your turn to vote. Ooh, another close one between Eric and Curry, but Curry just by a smidge on top. Another point. Another interesting one, and it's a great segue from the Log4j thing. How do you address dependency management in the software supply chain? Eric, you're up first.
I'd say with the aim of getting better every day. It's not easy in these large companies to prove and guarantee the safety of things like open source. And you end up moving way too slowly if you have to kind of manually onboard and rinse and repeat every time you want a new version. So I found that hindering developers from doing what they're actually excited about, which is developing, just causes us to lose top talent. So using the latest tools available and following industry trends closely is really the best thing to do. Make the discussion a non-factor. Things like Gradle and Bazel, Artifactory with X-Ray and source dependencies, just make it work.
Curry, you're up next. How do you address dependency management and supply chain?
So SBOM's bill of material, that's worked out really well for us. They're language agnostic, very extensible. They've been getting a lot of attention lately, especially with the US federal government mandating it for all of their own software recently. So of course, a combination, again, drawing back from my prior answer, automate generation of SBOMs, keep the generation as close to your build as possible so it's accurate, and then combine that with your automated dependency upgrades and the ability to release software really quickly. So that's how I would turn this.
All right. Rob, you're up next.
So for us, SBOM is a key piece of that puzzle, but also, as Eric said, making the right thing really easy to do. So, investing in automation to propose upgrades along a particular release line, and then the perimeter defenses are obviously also very, very key. So making sure that everything you bring in is secure and denying anything that isn't, so that you can't consume anything vulnerable is one of the best things we've.
Rob, you got cut off at the end there. Hopefully everybody caught that. Levi, to wrap up.
Yeah, so one of the things it's easy to point at tools and process, but one of the things that we talked about is creating a culture where dependencies are vetted. Engineers understand the impact of their use. It's part of their job, right? If you understand the impact of the use, you would be more thoughtful in pulling in dependencies. And then obviously there are tools that help streamline, reduce that burden. Many of the IDEs today show vulnerabilities for dependency before you even import it. And so there's a lot of ways that you can use tooling to make you more effective in dependency management, SBOM and
Tooling, the right tooling, always the solution. Great for my company, but never thought I'd hear this much about S-bombs, but I guess I'm in the right place. Software bill of materials for the regular folks that don't know what that means. All right, audience, your turn to vote for who made the best point. Another close one. Levi, you're on the board. We're going to do a surprise commercial break from our sponsor and one of my new favorite folks on this planet, Dr. DPE.
Number 9. Does this look familiar? Hello, I'm Dr. DPE. Around the world, millions of desperate developers suffer from CI backup every day. You know the painful humiliation of desperately needing to run a PR build when there's nothing you can do but wait for the blockage to pass. Someone may have told you that CI backup is just a part of a developer's life. Ha ha ha, no! If you're tied in knots with CI backup, you need clinically proven, doctor-recommended Gradle Enterprise. Gradle Enterprise is recommended for the treatment of CI backup. Side effects include faster PR builds, more efficient use of your CI resources, and thick, lustrous hair, all without waxy buildup. In some cases, users reported difficulty in during the idle time they get accustomed to. Ask your doctor if Gradle Enterprise is right for you.
Nice little Dr. DPE plug on the CI queuing problem that many folks here deal with, and a little plug for the Gradle Enterprise build speed and remote cache. It's great. All right, let's jump right back in. One of our favorite topics here. What are the best practices with dealing with flaky tests at a large firm? Firm-wide, how do you do this? It's a really hard problem. Everybody has this problem, whether you're in Silicon Valley or a small project to large projects, and it gets even harder at scale. Curry, how do you all deal with this? Or how have you seen this dealt with in a great way that you can share with us?
Sure. So I think this needs to be a combination of mechanisms and mindset change. Mechanisms, I would say, are more straightforward. You run your builds regularly, have tools in your CI that help you detect these flaky tests, and again, provide guidelines to your engineers so they can debug and fix them soon. Mindset, I would say, is the harder part to achieve. The first appearance of a flaky test is the best moment to fix it. That's the guiding line for us. But you don't want to be in a place where your engineers think that retrying is the way to fix flaky tests. So that's how I would think about it.
All right, Eric, you're up next.
Yeah, I completely agree with Curry in terms of flaky tests cutting the queue. Fighting flaky tests on release day is just brutal, totally waste of time. So it ends up being non-determinism by poorly written tests or the build infra. It doesn't really matter what, but there's just too much reliance, I think, on integration end-to-end testing right now, which lends itself to flakiness. So focusing more on the base layers of the testing pyramid and trusting in the correctness of induction. Other than that, just having an internally rotating micro team of ninjas to attack this stuff as early as possible.
Yeah, love the micro team idea. Levi, how have you seen this dealt with?
Yeah, so I think the simple answer, but probably the least valuable, is improve reliability at test environments. But I think the reality is you have to create a culture of test-driven development, test first, get the team thinking about what a successful outcome would be and test for that. Making sure they understand that they're accountable to the outcome of what the test was meant to accomplish. DevOps practices were what started this at my previous company, right? Helping the engineers be empathetic to the outcome, the operations of their product. So keeping it close to the team and not having it be a separate function.
Yeah, the application development teams have to do it. Rob, you're up next.
So I think for this particular problem, data is key. Investing time in keeping track of the previous and historic runs helps you understand where tests are flaky, allows you then to perhaps prioritize those tests on subsequent runs, so you can kind of get faster feedback cycles and fail earlier. The other thing is also leveraging tooling like quality scans and extending it to scan for code smells. There's lots of kind of bad smells in tests, like sleeps, that help you identify flaky tests before they even get executed. You can kind of quarantine those kinds of things and get feed them back into the backlog for resolution. We've also used kind of janitor teams like suggested by other folks to go after that backlog.
All right, audience, let us know what you think. It's a tough problem. You gotta need the right tools to identify them, and it's a hard thing for application development teams to do. Great answers from everybody. Audience, your turn to vote. All right, Eric, you're on the board. All right, next topic, how to best manage and monitor distributed applications. Rob, you're up first.
So I think you need to stand on the shoulders of giants. There's obviously very, very common patterns that you can use, like requests, errors, and duration, utilization, saturation errors. Focus on the boundaries of your system and the resources that you consume. Once you've zeroed in on those, you'll find you get the best and highest quality data. And then make sure that you tie that data back to your customer experience. Does it really, what you're measuring accurately representing what they're getting? If not, change the measurement and adapt and adapt that continuously.
Levi, you're up next.
So to enable this or to make it better, you definitely have to have a solid foundation to enable it, right? Making it so that managing and monitoring your applications isn't as difficult as it is if you don't have a foundation to build on top of. It streamlines it. The other aspect is having full stack teams that are accountable to the management and monitoring, right? So again, back to DevOps, if you operate it, you're empathetic to when it's not operating correctly. So you should be focused on the outcome, and like Rob said, the business outcome, not just the technology outcome.
Eric, you're up next.
A lot of the monitoring done at our companies, I think, are not based on distributed applications. So in this area, I'd say starting over, because our operations teams are not really happy to do things differently. They just like the way things are. And this is very different than what they're used to. So given that it's really easy to build dashboards, we can all write some basic Angular dashboard and have some sort of self-reporting actors with a parsable status or something like that. Really just doing only what you need and no more.
On Curry, to wrap it up.
So I would say a combination of top-down and bottom approach, up approach works well. So all pieces of your distributed application should be instrumented, should publish traces, should publish some baseline metrics like your latency, your error rate, your saturation. That's your bottom up. And then round that up with your user journey probes, which mimic your actual customer experience. So you alert on any deviation from your expected user experience. That reduces your mean time to detect, and then follow that up with using the traces and the metrics to remediate the issue soon, which basically reduces your mean time to remediate.
Audience, your turn to vote. On Curry, you're up again. The audience loved your bottom-up and top-down approach. Next topic, what is the new role of enterprise architecture? And Levi, you're up first.
Yeah, this is pretty near and dear to me. I'm a big advocate for moving from a governance model to a guidance model where appropriate. So we look at architects as being that architecture Sherpa, help champion new approaches, moving, by providing consulting. See if that new approach is relevant to others at the company, to see if it's meant for enterprise use, and then help make it generic enough that other teams can benefit from it. Connect innovators with fast followers, and don't focus on the tools. Lots of knowledge of enterprise services to help teams get started quicker building things.
Rob, you're up next.
So I couldn't agree more. You need to focus on guardrails in enterprise architecture and patterns. Making those patterns understandable and helping people understand the trade-offs that they're making by consuming that pattern so they can align it to the constraints and their requirements is really, really important. And then ensuring that it's something that you can do continuously. So it's got to be integrated into the sprints, into whichever agile fashion you subscribe to. As long as it's continuously evolving your architecture and you're making decisions and documenting those in some sort of searchable way, you can kind of evolve your architecture.
Curry, you're up next.
So with so much focus on security of late, I would say the new role of enterprise architecture is to enable engineers to deliver secure software quickly. So basically a combination of shifting left and controls with DevSecOps, supply chain security built into your very robust and secure CI and CD pipelines.
Eric, you're up next.
Money spent by corporations is wasted at scale when we spend time thinking about how to solve a problem as opposed to solving it. It's not to say we shouldn't go back and revisit the architecture decisions or question them, but at least with some degree of clarity. The best and the brightest enterprise architects should be able to define system archetypes, so the patterns that Rob was talking about, and then provide clear direction. That should save time and money. And at the end of the day, let developers get back to headphone time, which is really what they want.
And I love how all the answers kind of complemented each other, and that was great. Audience, your turn to vote. Another close one. Eric, you're on the board. Yeah. And the last kind of fun topic for everybody, right? How agile is too agile, right? You all care about shipping software at scale at a large bank. You know, it's a hard thing, right? But how agile is too agile? Eric, you're up first.
Agile for agile's sake, I think agile does not scale, unfortunately. The idea that a squad is the unit that can take on any problem that is handed to them is nice, and I think it can work in smaller companies. But people become territorial and feel the need to own their deliveries. So I prefer a deep dedication to the process. Then, you know, what have you done for me lately becomes what new awesome thing can we do together? So stop trying to fit these square pegs into round holes. Not everything should be agile, and most importantly, the conversation itself should be agile.
Love it. Curry, you're up next.
All right, so I would say the answer, like most other things in life, is it depends. Depends on where you are in the product development lifecycle. So if you're still designing the product, working backwards is the way to go. Any agile is too agile at this point. But once the product has been spec'd out and you know what your MVP looks like, agile adds a lot of value.
Great. Love that answer. Depends on the stage. Rob, what about you? How agile is too agile?
So I'm going to agree with Eric on this one. Agile for agile's sake is definitely a bad idea. If you find yourself trying to push out an MVP in a sprint just because you have to do that, then you're being too agile. I think a lot of teams don't spend enough time exploring the problem space and just jump straight into solutionizing. Agile can certainly encourage that in certain instances. I think we just need to stay true to the agile principles, which are all about controlling the chaos of the release and reducing risk, and trying to do that in a kind of consistent way.
Levi, to wrap it up.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, which is when your focus on agile is around a framework or a process, you're probably doing it wrong. The purpose of it is to make sure that we have time to reflect and improve. And to Rob's point, shifting left, the feedback cycle. If you don't have time to be agile, it might be no alignment. You're not aligning your cadence with your peer team. You don't have a roadmap. Probably not the best use of agile in that case. Yeah.
All right, audience, vote for who made the best point. I'm gonna need glasses to so I need to like zoom this. It's a tie. Rob and Eric. So that means we got two winners here. So we got Alan Curry and Eric in a tie. It's not about the points, folks. It's about learning something new. But Alan Curry, Eric, you got your 15 seconds of fame each. Alan Curry, you go first. Anything you want to talk about or say to the audience?
Sure. So I am so excited I got to be a part of this. So many good things we spoke about today. I've taken copious notes, a lot of good ideas to take back, I'm sure, for the audience as well. We're at such an exciting time of change, especially with so many of our applications going digital. So we're always on the lookout for great engineers. If CI/CD developer productivity excites you, please reach out. Thank you.
Awesome. Anything you want to say to the audience, Eric?
Yeah, thanks so much, Ruz, and the whole production team. This was awesome, and the other panelists. Your answers were excellent. So I'm sure we'll all connect at some point. Obviously, like Ankuri, I think all of us want to say we're looking for great talent, so that's always a good thing. But these banks are all doing really interesting and amazing things, and with such a big boat, actually on a boat, with such a big boat, it's hard to actually make that turn. And it takes people like this group and people like us that are willing to make those things happen. So I appreciate everyone here.
And thanks to all of you for taking time to participate and share and keep fighting the good fight of develop productivity engineering. And thank you, audience, for joining us today. Before I let you go, we are organizing a Developer Productivity Engineering Summit in San Francisco, November 2nd and 3rd, and would love to see many of you in person if you can. And thanks again, Ankuri, Eric, Levi, Rob. You guys added great knowledge and experiences to these topics that we don't usually get to hear about from these large banks that have these massive software stacks. And very happy to have you guys here sharing with the community. Thank you all. We'll see you all on the next time.